Hello, I am Karen Ray. I'm the founder here at Fave Lifestyles, and I am with Donita Wheeler. We are going to be sharing a little bit of the sneak peek behind her story and really what it was like to write the story. Because what we're finding out here in our mission to celebrate 1 million women is that sometimes you have to be really brave just to share your story. And what is that like? And just to let you know, we're at Prohibition Cellars and having some fabulous wine. They are our in-kind sponsor and have been so generous to provide the space for us to film, to gather women. And guess what? We have an audience with us with a whole bunch of ladies back there. This is such a joy. I don't know if a lot of you know that when I first started Fave, this is what we did, is we filmed live. We brought women together, we shared their stories, and it is such a joy to bring this back and to be able to share the heartfelt journey with all these ladies. So, Donita, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and so I think Donita wins the award for the best title. And her story is Who Knew Rock Bottom Had a Basement? So can anybody else relate to a situation in your life where you thought you were at rock bottom and then you realized there was a basement?
There's more.
And there's more. And, you know, and what was that like to go through that as a woman and just to tap into that grit, to that bravery, all those good things?
I think, well, the title is from a tea towel that I found during the time that I was going through these things in the store, and I was like, the universe is speaking to me. That's exactly what's happening. So I just thought it was kind of clever and cute. It is very brave to step into your story because, you know, you open yourself up to other people's judgment and other people's comments.
Yes, because our stories don't always, it's not just about us.
Right.
Sometimes it's other people. However, the thing that I love that our literary gal, Kathy Sparrow, did with the interview, because our stories here at Fave are all interview style, is that she takes you through a circumstance. So we have similar stories sometimes, and yet the way we go through them are different. So I'm going to just read just real quickly a little bit of your story, a little bio, if you will, just to give the ladies an idea of what we're going to be talking about. And yes, so in your story, you recount how surviving 5 cancers was not as devastating as facing the potential loss of your marriage. Through deep personal growth and resilience, you found the courage to rebuild your relationship and rediscover yourself, proving that even in the lowest points, there is renewal in the process. And that's, you know, I'm so excited. The stories are going to be coming out in the Being Brave book in December. So let's talk a little bit about what motivated you first to, when you heard the call to write your brave story, what was the thoughts going through your head?
I think mostly to hold myself accountable for my actions and for things that, I guess, because it did involve another person and like the whole family, I wanted to hold myself accountable, and I knew the written word would absolutely hold me there.
Excellent, yes. And so as you were, what do you think is the bravest thing when you were writing your story? What came out for you? What was like, oh, this part about brave I didn't recognize before?
I think it's always hard to talk about a personal relationship, especially your husband, because it's very intense and there's a lot of things that people don't know, like they only see or hear what you say or what he says or things like this. And I think being the brave part was overcoming or having enough capability to step into me and leave like my ego behind and to you know, to enjoy the things that I needed to learn and not feel like it was so tragic and so awful to have to learn these things that I needed to move forward and I need to forgive and move forward, and I needed to do that without my ego.
So it's and I was telling Donita as we were joining, you know, coming here today, is that in your story you said ego 3 times in the story, and I thought, wow, what is it about that? So it sounds like there was a challenge, a little struggle, a little fight with your ego during that time.
I don't think I wanted to believe that I was at fault at all. Like,
okay, we need our little signs that say I relate.
So I was like,
my fault.
but I'm doing everything right. So how in the world is this like still happening the way it is? And that's when I really had to examine me and my role in it. And that was when I had to be brave, because I had to realize that I was not perfect and that I was wrong, and I had to forgive. And so, and I didn't, like, nothing happened that was so tragic that it was just little bits and pieces of life all put together. And my husband grieves through anger, and I didn't know that. And, you know, I grieve through silence. So we were just so different in our approaches, and I had to take the time to really be brave and look at him as a whole beautiful love human, that we are all one. We're love. We're the energy. So I had to. I mean, we have children together. We have a family together. I needed to look at me.
Yeah. And so, ladies, just a little kind of brief. She had already gone through these 5 cancers, all these things, and this was the rock bottom.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we've gone through all these struggles, and yet here I am. So as you were writing your story and looking at it, did it bring out that beauty that you saw? Because one of the things that you talked about was that you said finally enough. Mm-hmm. And that you wanted to stop living to the expectations of what you thought he wanted or needed.
Yes.
And you wrote, and get back to me.
Yes, I did have to get back to me, and that takes a brave moment, because you have to look at all these people who have these expectations of you, of the way you behaved for the last 30 years, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm just going to go back to me, back here when I was 16. So, it just takes a lot of self-reflection, and I wanted to know who I was so that I could love and reciprocate the most in my true authentic self. And I just wasn't being authentic. I think a lot of ladies lose their authenticity over time, and they give away their power, and it's all for a good reason.
Anybody else relate? Okay, that's like my story too. So
Yeah, yes.
Different characters. Yeah, and so you also, you're writing your story, you're putting this down in words. Was there anything unexpected or surprising as you were writing your story?
Yeah, I fell back in love, as I was writing and realizing and understanding why I married him to begin with. We've been married for 34 years. You go through a lot in those years, and what had just happened after the cancers is that we spent a year in Tennessee taking care of his mom while she died, and she literally died physically in his arms. So that was a lot. And again, it went back to me being like, okay, we're done. Can we move back to where we were going and get our life back on? And he was like, no, I'm grieving. So it was, kind of clashy. But I think I forgot what I was supposed to be answering.
No worries. It's all good.
Sorry.
It's all good. So one of the things that you talked about too in the story is kind of those steps, those brave steps. And you worded it as faith in action and a renewed hope.
Yes. Yes.
And I think as you were talking about that love that was rekindled, renewed, that you recognized again, even not just through the actions that you took, but as you were writing your story, do you look at that now as a book of proof that maybe you can apply now to other situations in your life?
I think so. It took me down to the basis of who I am. It stripped me of everything. Mm-hmm. So it put me to my bare bones, and faith is what brought me back. I was raised in a very religious household. I've always had faith. I don't necessarily go to one particular thing now, but I've always had it in my past, and I believe that the energy that comes from God and the universe and these things build you into who you are. And if you allow, and you're not blocking that, then you allow, and your ego is aside, then yes, the ego was big for me during this. You become who you are, and you get down that basic foundation of love and how love is in the universe, and how we are all love. And when you're really tearing somebody apart mentally, I really need to look at me. Like, why am I tearing somebody apart? Like, what is so I'm not feeling good about,
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's just such a great reflection to write your story, isn't it? We hope that we'll inspire others by people experiencing the same emotional experiences. But I'm finding it so interesting how it's affecting us personally when we're writing our own story. Yeah. So now that you've written the story, you know it's going to be coming out in December. What is your hope that how it will touch the hearts of others?
I hope that if somebody is at rock bottom with the basement, I hope that they know that to continue on, because I have in my life, when I was done with my 5 cancers and 3 hysterectomies, I was at a point where I was suicidal. And while I didn't really follow through with that very effectively, I know that your mindset and everything really takes you to where you are. So if you're not in the authenticity or the love, then you're in a place that just isn't properly represented.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah. So if a woman is out there and she's not sure if she should write her story,
yes,
what would you say to her?
Write it. But I mean, my husband doesn't know that I wrote this. He's probably gonna find out. But I was just like, I might,
Yeah, but it's beautifully written, and I want to really stress to the women too that in the stories, it's about you.
Yeah.
It's not about what the relationship was with the other person. It's all about you, and it brings out your journey and what that growth and that experience was for you.
Well, and I would say, like, I've only known you a few years, and I've only known all of you all a few years, and I feel more love and support here in this room with these people than I have felt with my roommates from college. It is definitely, and so if you're going to write your story, believe in yourself and write it. And write it from the most authentic place so that you feel supported. Because that's when you show up authentically, that's when you are really supported by God, by the universe, by energy, by friends, by everything.
Oh my goodness, so beautiful. I'm just going to read your quote that we chose for the book. You can do life and grow at the same time, and there is no perfect time to start. So ladies, I would love to leave you with that. I would encourage you to write your story. You can come to Fave, and there's a little button on our app at favelifestyles.app, and you can submit a story, and it's interview style. So we take you through 16 questions. It's not, like I said, not so much about the circumstance as it is about the personal growth and how that, what brave means to you. So does brave mean anything different to you now that you've written your story?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I thought brave was like for people who were doing something horrific, like going into space or, like having a huge surgery or something. But being brave is really just showing up as you. And it's okay. Just take the one step, because you can always step backwards, but just take the one step and keep going, and there'll be one person that reads the story, all of our stories, that will resonate and they will grow. And that's what women are about, right? It's about like the old times where they'd sit around the campfire and they'd share stories, or they'd go in their enclosure and they would share stories and they would give belief systems and things like that. And that's basically what Fave is, a modern day, like, grow with us situation, because we just don't have that support from our ancestors anymore.
Exactly. So, ladies, yes, and you don't have to do it alone. That's the beauty of it. You don't have to do it alone. And we are here for you. And thank you, Donita, for coming and joining us and sharing a little bit about your story and the process of writing the story and being brave in that, too. So, thank you, ladies, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right on side.